90%. I mean, think about that.
Mm-hmm.
90% of enterprise AI pilots fail to scale beyond the experimentation phase.
It's a staggering number.
Right. 90. And the crazy part is it has absolutely nothing to do with the AI hallucinating or, the model performance being subpar or some engineer writing bad code.
Yeah, the tech itself is usually completely fine.
Exactly. And if you work in a modern organization, you probably feel the reality of that statistic every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you sit down at your desk, you open your laptop, and you are just staring at this massive wall of applications.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got your email, your team chat, the project management software, the CRM, and, oh, right, those 3 new AI assistants your company just rolled out.
The ones that were supposed to fix everything, right?
Right. You have literally never had more technology at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Yet, actually getting a single complex task done, like, say, getting a contract approved or resolving a complicated customer issue, it just feels like you are wading through waist-deep molasses.
It really is the defining paradox of the modern workplace. Organizations today are just swimming in raw processing power, right? And isolated intelligence. But they are completely starved for coordinated momentum.
Starved for momentum. That's a good way to put it.
Well, the assumption for the last decade was basically that if you just bought enough smart systems, an intelligent operation would sort of organically emerge.
Right, but intelligence doesn't just spontaneously generate because you put a bunch of expensive software in the same building.
No, it definitely doesn't.
So today, we are going to look at why that traditional approach to enterprise technology is just fundamentally broken. We're getting into the mechanics of why throwing more software at a problem usually, makes the bottleneck worse.
Which is counterintuitive, but true.
Yeah. And we'll look at how a core philosophy of staying ahead of what's ahead is actively reshaping the very infrastructure of major industries. We're moving away from the era of just digitizing individual tasks and entering the era of orchestrated intelligence.
And to really understand why this shift to orchestrated intelligence is happening, we kind of have to look at the anatomy of that 90% failure rate you mentioned.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. Why do they fail?
Well, when an organization tries to scale an AI initiative, the real barrier is almost always the absence of a governed execution layer.
A governed execution layer.
Right, because look, you can deploy an AI model that generates a perfectly accurate, brilliant insight about, say, a customer's risk profile.
Sure.
But if that insight has to be manually copied and pasted by an analyst into an email
Oh, right.
and sent to a manager who then has to cross-reference it against some 30-year-old legacy database, who then waits for a compliance officer to approve it in a completely different SaaS platform.
Then the decision is still moving at a snail's pace.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The tech is fast, the execution is crawling.
Because the vital knowledge is trapped.
Right.
It's sitting in these isolated email threads or just lost in endless approval trails.
Yeah, completely fragmented.
It's honestly like assembling a supergroup of the world's most talented musicians. Like, you hire the best guitarist, the best drummer, the best bassist.
Okay, I like this.
But then you put them in separate soundproof booths, you don't give them any sheet music, and they refuse to look at the conductor.
Right.
You have incredible individual brilliance, but the collective result is just noise.
Just expensive noise. Because the problem in the enterprise space isn't a lack of digitization. I mean, almost everything is digital now.
Yeah.
The friction comes from the connective tissue. Or, well, the lack of it.
But wait, hold on. Wasn't digital transformation supposed to fix this exact issue like 10 years ago?
That was the promise, yeah.
Right. I mean, every vendor promised their tool would break down the silos and create a seamless workflow.
Yeah.
How do we just end up building shinier, smarter silos?
Well, it's because digital transformation, at least how it was widely implemented, it primarily focused on the tasks themselves, not the end-to-end journey of the work.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so companies digitize the physical filing cabinet by just turning it into a cloud drive.
Right.
They digitize the inter-office memo by turning it into instant messaging platforms like Slack or Teams. They essentially took a fragmented physical office and turned it into a fragmented digital office.
Wow. So they changed the medium, but kept the exact same broken operating model.
Exactly. They just sped up the creation of the mess.
Which leads to this massive realization we need to talk about regarding how organizations view their most valuable asset. Because the entire strategy has kind of misclassified what enterprise content actually is.
This is a huge point.
Yeah, we usually treat enterprise content, PDFs, forms, historical records, like a digital junk drawer.
Yep, completely passive.
Right, you scan a document, throw it in a cloud folder, and literally forget about it until an auditor desperately needs to find it. It's treated as passive storage. But that content isn't just a record of something that happened in the past.
No, it's operational intelligence.
Exactly. It is operational intelligence. It's the actual fuel that dictates what happens next.
And if we look at heavily regulated sectors, you can see how this plays out mechanically.
Like banking or insurance.
Right. Banking, insurance, government. In these worlds, every single critical decision relies entirely on content. A loan approval doesn't just happen in a vacuum.
Right. It needs context.
Exactly. It depends on onboarding files, identity proofs, credit histories. An insurance payout depends on claims, documents, submitted photos, policy records. The documents literally are the business.
The documents are the business. So if that content is basically the brain of the operation, leaving it in a digital junk drawer is a massive liability.
It's a huge risk. And there has been a pretty clear evolution in how enterprises handle this operational intelligence over time.
Okay, so what did that evolution look like?
Well, phase one was that simple digitization we talked about, getting the paper out of the filing cabinet and onto a server.
Right, the cloud drive phase.
Yeah. Then phase two was governance. Regulated industries realized they needed, version control, access rights, strict retention policy.
Because they needed an immutable record of who looked at a document and when. For compliance.
Exactly, which gives you secure, well-organized content. But, and here's the catch, it's still locked in its own system.
Ah, so it doesn't solve the supergroup problem?
Nope. The musicians still aren't playing together. The real holy grail here is figuring out how to coordinate the work across all these different systems without causing a massive corporate disruption.
Right, because the traditional way to fix a fragmented tech stack is to perform what is essentially a risky billion-dollar corporate surgery.
Oh, the rip and replace approach?
Yeah. You rip out all the old legacy systems like a bank's 30-year-old COBOL mainframe and try to force everyone onto one gigantic monolithic platform.
Which is a nightmare. Those rip and replace projects notoriously take 5 years. They go hundreds of millions of dollars over budget, and honestly, they frequently fail.
Because you simply cannot rip out the core mainframe of a global bank without risking catastrophic operational downtime.
You really can't. And this exact engineering challenge gave birth to a totally new layer of enterprise technology.
Right.
Instead of ripping and replacing, the solution is to build a coordination layer that just sits above the existing systems.
It makes me think of a universal translator in a sci-fi movie.
Okay, I can see that.
Like, you have 5 different alien species trying to fly a spaceship together. You don't force them all to spend 10 years learning a brand new fabricated language.
No, you'd never get off the ground.
Right. You put a universal translator in the middle. It listens to the alien speaking its native tongue, instantly translates the intent, and feeds it to the pilot so the mission can just continue.
That's a great analogy.
The legacy systems get to keep speaking their native language, but the workflow isn't interrupted.
And that translates perfectly to what orchestrated intelligence actually is.
Yeah.
It is the shift from merely managing disparate tools to creating a unified operational environment.
So not just storing, but coordinating.
Exactly, and platforms evolved specifically to solve this gap. We can look at Newgen's architecture as a prime example of this evolution.
Let's dive into that.
Yeah, so they developed tools like OmniDocs for content, OmniFlow IBPS for process automation, and OmnioMS for communication governance.
And these aren't meant to rip out the old systems, right?
Exactly. They aren't meant to replace a hospital's core record system or a bank's legacy database. They sit on top via APIs and middleware acting as the orchestration engine.
They act as the universal translator holding the sheet music.
Precisely. And this philosophy culminates in architectures like Newgen,
Right.
which is a cloud-native platform that brings all the essential connective tissues into one place. You get process orchestration, content intelligence, communication management, low-code development, and AI decisioning.
All under one roof.
Yep.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of what this actually looks like for the listener, because, process orchestration sounds great in a boardroom, but how does it physically change the daily work?
Let's use a real-world example.
Okay, let's take a mortgage application. In the old model, a customer uploads a PDF of their tax return to a web portal.
Right.
A loan officer has to download that PDF, read it, and then manually re-enter the data into that 30-year-old AS400 mainframe.
Which takes forever and is prone to errors.
Exactly. Then they send an email to the compliance team. The compliance team logs into a completely different sauce tool to run a background check, which takes like 3 days.
It's a disjointed nightmare.
Total nightmare. So what does that look like under an orchestrated intelligence model?
Under that model, the same process is entirely seamless. The customer uploads the PDF. The orchestration layer, using an intelligent content management tool, ingests the document, reads the context, and actually extracts the necessary data.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It then uses that universal translator mechanism to feed the data directly into the legacy AS400 mainframe without a human ever touching a keyboard.
So the data entry is completely automated.
Right. And simultaneously, the workflow engine automatically triggers the compliance check in the separate sauce tool. Once the AI decisioning engine confirms the parameters are met, the communication management system automatically generates and sends the final contract to the customer.
That is wild. And the legacy mainframe stayed completely intact. The bank didn't have to spend $1 billion replacing it.
Exactly. The process itself was just orchestrated above it.
And it's not just banking either. Like in insurance, it means claims and underwriting function with full document context.
Right.
An adjuster reviewing a roof damage claim isn't just seeing a data point on a spreadsheet.
No, they need the whole picture.
Yeah, so the orchestration layer pulls the policy history from a legacy server, the submitted photos from the mobile app portal, and the communication log from the email server, presenting it all in a single, fully auditable workflow.
And government services are perhaps the most desperate for this level of coordination.
Oh, tell me about it.
I mean, citizens frequently experience the pain of fragmented handoffs. Say you apply for a commercial building permit. It requires a background check from the police department, an environmental review from a state agency, and fee processing through a municipal tax board.
And traditionally, the citizen is the one forced to carry the paperwork between those silos.
Exactly. But orchestrated intelligence automatically routes the data across those distinct agency systems.
So the value here is clearly far beyond simple task automation.
Oh, absolutely. Automation is just making a single step happen faster.
Right, like you can automate the email that tells the citizen their permit is delayed.
Which doesn't really solve the problem.
No. But orchestrated intelligence is about enterprise-wide execution at scale.
Yeah.
You aren't automating an isolated task. You are governing the entire journey of the intelligence.
And that word governance is the critical hinge of this entire philosophy.
Governance. Okay, say more about that.
Well, staying ahead of what's ahead doesn't just mean adopting the newest technology. It means anticipating the structural vulnerabilities of that technology before they become a crisis.
Right.
Which brings us to the most disruptive force currently hitting the enterprise space: autonomous agentic AI.
Oh, yeah. We are definitely entering the era of agentic AI.
It's here.
We're moving past AI that just, drafts a polite email for you and moving toward autonomous agents that can actually execute multi-step processes on their own.
Which is incredibly powerful.
But if an enterprise system relies on this perfectly orchestrated, delicate balance of legacy systems, workflows, and compliance rules, well, an autonomous AI agent running wild seems like it would throw a massive wrench into the machine.
It is the single biggest fear keeping chief information officers awake right now.
I bet.
As enterprises accelerate toward agentic AI, they are realizing that raw intelligence without governance is incredibly dangerous.
Dangerous how?
Well, ungoverned AI doesn't create faster execution. It creates faster fragmentation and compounding liability.
Right, because an autonomous agent might authorize $1 million insurance payout based on a single metric without checking the client's historical risk profile or realizing the policy lapsed 2 days ago.
Exactly. And agentic AI might produce a perfectly accurate mathematical output, like it reviews the roof damage and correctly calculates that the repair costs $15,000.
Okay.
But if that AI is disconnected from the broader regulatory obligations or the company's internal operational policies, executing that payment autonomously is a catastrophic risk.
It's like putting a massive rocket engine on a skateboard.
Oh, I love that.
Right. Yes, you now have raw, incredible speed. You are moving faster than you ever thought possible. But you have absolutely no steering column, no braking system, and no navigation.
And in an enterprise environment, especially a highly regulated one speed without control isn't an advantage. It's a guaranteed crash.
Yeah, and you are driving that rocket-powered skateboard through a china shop.
Exactly. Because in banking, healthcare, or government, a crash doesn't just mean a bruised knee. It means Tens of millions of dollars in compliance fines, massive data breaches, and a total loss of consumer
You
trust.
simply cannot afford an unorchestrated AI making rogue decisions.
Which is why trust by design is rapidly becoming a foundational, non-negotiable enterprise requirement.
Trust by design.
Yes, you cannot bolt governance onto an AI model after the fact. The steering and the brakes have to be baked into the architecture of the system from the ground up.
Okay, so how does an architecture like Newgen actually tame the AI? Like, how does it mechanically provide that steering and braking system so the AI doesn't just hallucinate $1 million loan approval?
It achieves this by combining intelligent ECM, which stands for Enterprise Content Management, with orchestration environments like Agent Studio.
Right.
The entire mechanism relies on a concept called grounding.
Right. And intelligent ECM means it's not just storing the file like a dumb hard drive, it's actually reading and understanding the context of the documents to feed the AI.
Exactly. The platform grounds the AI systems in that governed enterprise content.
Yeah.
The AI isn't pulling answers from the open internet, and it isn't relying on the unpredictable black box logic of a public model. It is mathematically constrained to pull from the company's own verified, secure operational intelligence.
Okay, so if the AI wants to approve the roof claim, the orchestration layer intercepts that intent.
Yes.
It requires the AI to check the intelligent ECM for the specific policy document. The ECM recognizes the policy lapsed, and the workflow engine automatically routes the claim to a human adjuster, attaching the AI's math but blocking the autonomous payout.
You nailed it. The orchestration layer forces the AI agents to work alongside human intervention, legacy applications, and standard workflows, all governed through that unified layer.
That is so smart.
And the result is AI execution that is inherently explainable, auditable, and compliant.
Because when a regulator comes knocking 6 months later, the system can actually generate a log.
Exactly. It can say, the AI agent made this specific decision, grounded in this specific governed document, and it was routed through this specific approved workflow.
The AI is forced to read the sheet music and follow the conductor, just like every other system in the stack.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that perfectly encapsulates the philosophy of staying ahead of what's ahead.
Yeah, anticipating the problems.
It's about anticipating how enterprise operations are going to evolve long before the market fully catches up. Right now, honestly, most companies are still just trying to figure out how to buy the skateboard.
Right.
They are stockpiling AI pilots that will inevitably fail to scale because they lack the infrastructure.
Yeah.
But the organizations looking ahead, they are already building the steering wheel, the brakes, and the navigation system for the rocket.
It really requires a profound shift in how leadership views technology.
It does. The competitive advantage in the next 5 years is not going to belong to the company that hoards the most individual AI tools.
No.
Or the one that boasts the highest number of discrete bots running in the background. The winners will be the organizations that build cohesive, secure environments where intelligence can actually execute at scale without breaking the china shop.
So, whether you are managing a small team's daily workflow or you're an executive overseeing these massive corporate infrastructure shifts, the major takeaway is pretty clear. The era of simply stockpiling disconnected tech tools and hoping for a miracle is over.
Completely over. The future of enterprise execution relies entirely on orchestrating intelligence.
Building that universal translator.
Yes. Connecting your AI, your historical content, and your daily workflows under a strict, unified umbrella of governance, that is the only way to genuinely stay ahead of what's ahead.
Context and coordination have become infinitely more valuable than raw processing power. Context over power. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on.
I'm ready for this.
Something that builds on everything we've just discussed about autonomous, perfectly orchestrated enterprise systems. We've talked extensively about how crucial it is to govern an AI within the walls of a single company. We know how to give the AI sheet music so it plays nicely with the internal legacy systems.
Right.
But what happens in 3 or 4 years when these perfectly orchestrated systems start talking to each other?
Oh, wow.
Imagine a heavily regulated bank's fully autonomous agentic AI needs to negotiate a complex, multi-million-dollar financial settlement directly with a heavily regulated insurance company's fully autonomous AI.
That is going to happen sooner than we think.
Right. Both AI agents are perfectly grounded in their own intelligent ECMs. Both are following their own strict internal governance rules. Both have access to their own massive vaults of operational intelligence.
So they're both right according to their own rule.
Exactly. So what happens when these two perfectly governed, highly auditable systems fundamentally disagree on a policy decision?
That is a huge question.
When human error is completely removed and the algorithms reach a logical impasse because their respective orchestrations demand opposite outcomes, who or what mediates the dispute between the machines? Do we build a third independent coordination layer just for the AI to argue in?
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Something to think about the next time you log in and stare at that wall of applications. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.